From the fallen ruins of the Statue of Liberty, it's the IGN Digigods. Please welcome two men ready to give mocap apes a chance, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Mocap is mo better. So, Corey, who sent that spoiler in?
That spoiler was written by Lenny Timmons.
There we go. Lenny Timmons. Corey had no snarky follow-up for that.
I'm surprised at that because Corey is the vice president of Snarky Follow-Ups.
Yes, he is. He is indeed.
Wade, would you want to try my banana bread?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Cooking. It's become a cooking show progressively over the last 6 months, so
well,
why not?
You know, I made this banana bread.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
And then it used some buttermilk.
Yeah.
And with the leftover buttermilk, I made cilantro and dill corn muffins.
Ooh.
Would you like one of those as well?
Interesting.
I didn't tell you that. I sprung that on you.
Yeah.
Here, try the banana bread.
I made a rather interesting quinoa thing yesterday. That
A what? What?
A quinoa thing.
What does that mean?
Quinoa. You know quinoa.
No, I don't.
Don't you cook with quinoa?
No.
Quinoa. It's like
everyone knows what quinoa is.
It's like a barley kind of a couscousy, grainy, ricey thing.
Oh yeah, quinoa.
It's
Is
great.
that the one that's spelled like Quino something?
Quinoa. Yes.
Is
It's
it?
quinoa.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So let's start over. So
I just
Mark,
figured it was like quinoa. I just figured it was.
So Mark, don't you cook with quinoa?
No.
No. Okay. It's really good. I made a good thing. A little bit of little feta cheese, a little bit of kind of citrusy, oily dressing on it. What did you put in this banana bread other than banana?
Oh, you're taking a bite out of it. It would have been the perfect moment to say like arsenic or meatloaf or dog crap or something, but I didn't. I played it straight.
Chocolate.
There's some chocolate in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's bananas. By the way, I bought 3 bananas,
Uh-huh.
and I let them sit on my counter for like a week because you got to let them get.
So you're saying there's also penicillin in here?
Yes,
Okay.
you have to let them get ripe up to the point of like being rotten, because that's where the sweetness is.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I noticed that you're shoving it in your mouth at a pretty great rate.
Yeah, pretty good. It's good banana bread.
Thank you very much.
By the way, speaking of penicillin, did I ever tell you the penicillin story?
You have not. I have a feeling I'm about to hear it.
Okay, this is a Mark Jaffe story. For those who don't know, a friend of ours, childhood friend of mine, probably one of the most amusing human beings I've ever known in my life. Perhaps not intentionally. Anyway, years ago, Mark Jaffe, gosh, there's so many stories, was working at a 7-Eleven in Santa Monica. And the only at a 7-Eleven. And the guy who owns the 7-Eleven, or at least had the franchise, he was sick one day, and he came in and he had an egg, a hard-boiled egg, that was black. It was covered with mold. And it was just a rotten, disgusting hard-boiled egg that had been sitting out, and it was covered with mold. And he said, don't worry about it, because this sickness is going right away. This is penicillin. This is real penicillin. And in front of everyone at the store, he wolfed down the disgusting mold-covered black egg, to which, of course, all of the employees in the store voiced a collective, ew, gross. And about 10 minutes later, paramedics had to show up and took him to the hospital. They get his stomach pumped.
So what was his reaction? Was it pain? Did he double over? Did he faint?
Apparently, he just like eyes rolled back in his head, and he just collapsed. And it was just this horrible, horrible food poisoning reaction.
That sounds like Mark Jaffe.
But Mark didn't do it. He was just present.
But it sounds like something he would do. Tell me Mark Jaffe wouldn't do something like that.
No, he wouldn't do something like that.
Oh, he really wouldn't?
No.
Because Mark's pretty heavy.
Yeah, he's heavy, but he's not stupid. He wouldn't. He
kind of is.
He would go to he'd go to Hometown Buffet and take full advantage of the deal. But
oh, by the way, at Golden Corral,
mm-hmm.
you know what they have now?
Uh-uh.
They have a chocolate fountain.
Oh.
And then they have something else. I love Golden Corral.
All right.
Let's
get cracking on this. We have a.
I hate Golden Corral.
We got tons today. We have something instead of a Vox box, Mark. We have an interview. We did an interview.
We did. We were very pleased.
And we're covering that DVD later.
Good. We were very pleased to have been offered.
I'm done eating.
Now, hang on for a second. Before I mention who we're talking to today, now I have a whole lot of cilantro and dill cornbread. I would like a cilantro and dill cornbread muffin.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm not going to be eating that today.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Because I'll be honest with you, it's not that great.
That's okay.
But the banana bread was good.
So I'm going to cut right to the chase.
You say
here.
the banana bread was good.
It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're becoming quite the baker.
Thank you. Now we have to say who we interviewed.
We interviewed the one, the only, the mighty, the great, the television legend, Mark.
Gee, Wade, oversell it.
Speak his name.
Bernie Kopell.
That's right, the great Bernie Kopell.
We interviewed Siegfried.
And we'll be sharing our interview with him, our phone interview, in connection with the release of the complete series of Lancelot Link, Secret Champ, which ran for 2 years in the early 70s, and it's a totally unique show. No one's ever done anything like it. It was out once before on DVD, not very good quality. They really went right to the wall with this one, and it is a terrific set. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, I want to roll through some listener mail.
Oh, we're doing listener mail first.
Doing listener mail first. Get these out of the way. Get it going. We're
edgy.
We are moving this week. We're moving quickly. This is from Roberto Rodriguez, even though he signs it Nick R. So take what you will from that. Hey, guys, love the show. Cannot get enough from your recipes to your banter about movies and your love for Adam Sandler and Zack Snyder. My question is, with all the iCloud, ultraviolet, digital download, Amazon stream, and whatnot, do you see any issue with just taking my DVDs, burning them to my computer, and converting them to work on whatever device I have? I'm not suggesting renting a movie and copying it illegally, but rather one I own, such as Bourne Identity, and copying the DVD to work on my iPhone instead of buying a whole new copy just to get this feature, basically meaning the digital copy. Also was wondering if you if you two could each do a pick of the week for new releases and for classic movies. I myself am always looking to expand my collection, but with so many released, which ones stand out as a must-see this week? Thanks for everything. Keep up the great work. First, we have talked about doing that kind of a pick of the week, and we do it kind of on occasion when we can. The problem is some weeks just blow. And we don't really want to do a pick of the week if the week just sucks in general. And some weeks have just a ton of great stuff, and it's just you got to recommend a whole bunch of things. So we'll certainly take it under advisement, but it's something that hasn't really worked terribly well on a week-to-week basis. But certainly something we'll keep considering if everybody wants us to do it. With respect to burning to his own stuff, the Supreme Court and the courts in general ruled back in the days of VHS that people are entitled to make copies of things that they buy for their own home use. So if you buy a DVD, you are legally protected to make your own digital copies and use them on your iPhone and so forth. You just can't distribute them on the internet. You can't sell them to friends. You can't do any of that stuff. You can't make a business out of it. But you can make as many copies, as many different ways as you can and as you want to for your own use. What's interesting is that this whole burn to the cloud nonsense that they're doing now at Walmart and whatnot, where you're supposed to pay Warner Brothers to basically do a cloud copy of the DVD that you already bought from them.
That I can rip and put on the cloud myself?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. All the studios are suing that Kaleidoscape for basically manufacturing hardware that lets you do it yourself. Kaleidoscape is a home kind of movie jukebox system. And I think what they're trying to do there is scare Kaleidoscape with big legal fees because they know it's a relatively small company. But I tell you, Kaleidoscape's going to win that. There's no reason why they should be what they're doing is illegal. Absolutely no reason.
Well, it gets back to whether people should be doing that at all. Do you want to have a hard drive that has all your movies on it, and then you take the hard drive to your buddy's house and watch a movie?
Why not? You can take the disc. I mean, if you bought the disc,
But you'd have to rip it. You'd have to rip it at 1-to-1, 100%.
But what Kaleidoscape does that's really cool, and I've seen the demo. Kaleidoscape is a great big giant server machine. It's a rack that sits in your garage, and it's got a deck in it. And you put the disc in, the Blu-ray or the DVD or whatever, and it just whizzes and whirs, and it burns that thing to its giant computer bank, and then it presents the contents that it has in it to you in a menu, which lets you access information on the internet, and it gives you credits and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's great. You can sit there, and it's like you're using Apple TV or any other kind of a digital television service, and you can just kind of, it's like iTunes, for movies. You just roll through them. It's amazing. It's great. It's expensive as hell, but if you can afford the cash, do it.
It's expensive now.
Totally. Well, not in the future,
yeah.
I guess. C.K. Huber writes us and says, Mark and Wade, love your podcast. 2 quick questions. Will North America ever receive a box set release of Nightmare on Elm Street on Blu-ray? It's available in the UK on region-free Blu-ray. However, the bonus DVD is region 2, which is the real question. I'm interested in the set. Also, I know Saw is already out on Blu-ray, but are there any plans to release the franchise in a box set or on separate Blu-rays with both director and theatrical cuts and more in-depth features? He also says, one more thing, Harry Potter Year 7, Part 2, 1 and 2, will they be releasing an Ultimate Edition on Blu-ray? I have all the others. And do not wish to spend $400 on the Wizards collection in order to get last year. Yeah, they will, of course. They'll absolutely release those separately. You just got to wait for them. Who knows? Probably end of this year. Nightmare on Elm Street, absolutely. I guarantee you that's going to show up on Blu-ray. It's just a matter of time, and that's a New Line series, and Warner Brothers has not been giving, apart from the Lord of the Rings films, it has not been giving the New Line library a whole lot of attention. Now, I'm sure that's going to change at some point, but it'll get a great release. Warner Brothers will do a great release of it. It's just a matter of what the bureaucracy decides. And the Saw films, I don't know. Box set, that's a Lionsgate call. Lionsgate's kind of cheap. Who knows?
The Saw box set?
Yeah.
Well, I think at this point the franchise is over.
Yeah, but will Lionsgate kind of go for, will they do a big box set of all the Saw films on Blu-ray?
Well, you know what? I don't know how well the original releases did. If the original releases did well enough, they might assume enough will double dip to justify the cost of a box set. If it didn't do well, then nothing will justify the cost of a box set.
Kyle Stevens writes and says, Gods, is it just me or is Roger Ebert an ass? Mark?
Oh, I love Roger Ebert. I do. He's great.
I'm not so fond. But I respect him on a certain level, but I do think he's kind of an ass. Peter Kozores from Toronto writes and says, Greetings, Digigods. My apologies for the poor quality of Canadian television. I don't watch that trash either. There's a saying here that it's cheaper to buy American content than it is to make our own. And then he notes something from the Canadian content article on Wikipedia, which is actually quite funny. It says, the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunication Commission requirements that radio and television broadcasters must air a certain percentage of content that was at least partly written, produced, presented, or otherwise contributed to persons from Canada.
Now that is bizarre.
Isn't it? Yep.
That's almost like the film distribution quota in China.
Exactly. He said, thought this would help explain why you had to endure watching some of the horrible shows mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago. Keep up the great work. This includes your cooking talents as well.
Yay, I made banana bread, and Wade liked it.
Chevelle Dixon, who is a longtime listener, has contributed many a cool Vox box as well.
Are you reading all these letters?
No, I'm just going through a few of them.
Thank you.
Digigods, when I went to see Prometheus, I saw a trailer for the new Zemeckis film Flight with Denzel Washington. Looks like it'll be interesting. Can't believe it's been 12 years since he's done a real live-action film. Maybe this could be his comeback movie. Also, I thought Prometheus was great. Sorry you guys thought different.
Aww.
Yeah.
You know what, Zemeckis, it sounds like he's a work for hire on this.
Yeah.
And the hope is it becomes like Spike Lee in Inside Man, where he's a work for hire, but somehow it just energizes him to get back in the game.
True.
So I'm hoping Zemeckis sort of looks at this thing and says, you know what, I'm going to knock this thing out of the park, convince people that I'm not dead, and maybe get some decent work.
I hear you. And Walter Gass takes us to task. Joss Whedon's Vanity Projects blow? What the hell are you talking about, Wade? Cabin in the Woods was awesome. Writer, not director, of course. Serenity was fantastic. Writer and director. Dr. Horrible was clever and fun. Incidentally, I was in Dr. Horrible, just background stuff during one scene, but I'm seen a few times. My brush with fame. His TV work, Buffy, Angel, Firefly. I don't care for too much for Dollhouse. All great. What's your problem with Joss Whedon, and why do you hate everything I love? Game of Thrones, Avengers, and now Joss Whedon. Disgruntled listener, Walter. Mark, do you have a comment for Walter? I don't hate Joss Whedon. I wrote him back, and I said I actually I like the Avengers. I just didn't love it. I didn't go crazy for it. Cabin in the Woods I thought sucked, but I think Whedon's a good guy.
He's you know what, he's a cult item.
Yeah.
People who love him rabidly love him, and it's really just fanboys. He's a fanboy phenomenon.
I want more from him. I expect more from him.
You know what you want? You want a little more Aaron Sorkin.
Mark's making fun because we watched the Aaron Sorkinism mashup before the show.
But it's true. Like you realize that Joss Whedon wrote an Alien sequel.
Yeah, I know.
And the thing with Joss Whedon is that I feel like great writers can write anything, but I cannot imagine Joss Whedon writing like
But see,
drama.
But see, I can. I think he's got him in him. I just don't think he feels like that's what his brand is. That's not what's expected
Well, that's
of him.
the thing. He's worrying about his brand.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I want people to always work outside the brand. I mean, the brand you should establish should be quality, not genre. So go far afield, do whatever you want. But if you're the guy who does superhero movies or sci-fi movies or horror movies or genre movies, look, John Carpenter. Really, when he made Starman, sure, it's still genre, but that was totally outside of what he usually does.
Well, Roland Emmerich. Making Anonymous.
Oh, my gosh. Anonymous is the best film he's ever made. So, yeah, I'd love to see Joss Whedon make that kind of a leap. And the last one this week is courtesy of Dominic, who writes, I'd like to recommend the free Handbrake for your listeners. It's a simple thing to use, especially with DVD Shrink, to convert movies to your portable devices. So Handbrake's great. There are a lot of things. Handbrake it works on the Mac and on the PC, and there are a lot of other pieces of software that'll work with it as well. So that being done, Mark, we can move on to talk about this week's DVDs and Blu-rays.
We have lots of them, Wade.
Tons of them.
Can we start with film, please? Now that we've bored everybody with there are films here, Wade. These are films.
The new films.
Thank you.
You want to do the new films?
Well, yes.
All right. There's not a lot of new stuff this week, like
okay.
brand spanking ones. But we're starting off. Well, you talk about it. Hell, I can't even muster the interest.
Oh, Wrath of the Titans is out, and this movie is probably just as bad as the first one. What do you say? It's a Blu-ray 3D. It's a Blu-ray 3D, Blu-ray, DVD, and Ultraviolet, all in the same package. The movie's a sequel to obviously Wrath. What's it called? The other stupid Titans movie. Quest of the Titans, or the Wrath of the Find of the God, or whatever else it's called.
Yeah. That one, the first one.
I tell you,
which was already a remake of the original Clash of the Titans.
That's it, Clash of the Titans.
And it's just, come on, really.
I feel bad for Sam Worthington. We talked about this, how this guy was in this guy is in Avatar,
I know.
Terminator, Titans. That's like that's two huge franchises and a kind of a crappy franchise.
But you know what?
But now he's dead.
But you know what? He's still got it better going than Taylor Kitsch.
I know, poor guy.
Seriously, Taylor Kitsch. I just saw Savages last night. Wow. Seriously, this was supposed to be his year, and instead it's one crash and burn after another. It's unbelievable.
Poor guy.
It's just, this was about, he probably thought, oh my gosh, the world's my oyster. I've got John Carter, and then I'm going to have Battleship, and I got that Oliver Stone movie. It's just boom, boom, boom. 3 strikes,
bomb
done.
After bomb.
Bomb after bomb. He's going to be doing, like
sitcom, Law and Order,
Cinemax stuff next week.
Anyway, Wrath of the Titans, dialogue terrible, story very simplistic, completely silly. It doesn't take itself seriously, but who cares? Because I didn't take it seriously either.
Awesome transfer, though.
It looks great. It looks great.
Fantastic.
I'm not into
and it
the
sounds
3D,
great.
but it looks. And it actually does sound great.
And they blow it out with their maximum movie mode.
I hate that crap. But there's a cool. The storyboard comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they've been doing that on DVDs for years, and it was never interesting ever. The picture-in-picture is kind of fun for some of it. You know what? I just don't like it. Don't get it.
They're featurettes. They're trying to do interesting stuff with like the Path of Men and the Path of the Gods, and it's basically just featurette stuff, storyboard comparisons, and a lot of stuff on the effects and the making of it. Unless the film's interesting, none of this stuff is interesting. But high quality, well done. I'll give them that much.
Speaking well done, the surprisingly entertaining 21 Jump Street, starring Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum.
It really was surprisingly good. I was shocked.
This is funny stuff. What I liked about the film is that you can tell it was created by a very specific type of comedy mind.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like a cookie cutter romantic comedy or cookie cutter buddy action film.
What's smart is that this trend that we have of kind of trying to take old TV shows and make them hip and interesting again. They own it. They own the fact that that's a stupid trend, and they know it, and they're just totally copying to it and saying, "Yep, we're a part of that." And it's very tongue-in-cheek, very self-deprecating. And frankly, I was stunned. I'm kind of a Channing Tatum fan all of a sudden. I thought he was a real empty suit before, but somehow, last few films, he's coming on. He's got good comic timing. He's very funny in the film.
Well, you know what? He's smart. Unlike a lot of these young actors coming up, like Taylor Lautner or whatever.
Yeah.
Tatum's worked with Soderbergh a couple times.
Yeah.
So he's learning. He's picking good
And we're
directors.
seeing that Magic Mike film tomorrow, Thursday. Maybe
No,
you're not going to
I
it.
don't know. Do I want to go?
Not really.
I love Soderbergh,
I know.
but do I want to go to that?
I don't know.
Work has been so busy. I'm so tired. I really might want to just not see that.
And not see a movie about a male stripper. And
Although it's kind of a...
his sweaty pecs and ripped abs.
Yeah.
Now, 21 Jump Street, I thoroughly enjoyed. It does kind of dovetail a little bit with some cameos to the original. And is it great? No. But it's got some fantastically funny moments. So I'm shocked that I'm actually recommending this. Good cast and crew commentary, director and the cast. A bunch of featurettes and deleted scenes. Nothing really mind-boggling. It's perfectly acceptable Blu-ray transfer. Sony didn't exactly feel the need to make this an A-list release because it doesn't really matter how it looks. The movie's it's a comedy. It's not going to win any Oscars for cinematography.
Speaking of not winning Oscars, next we have Eddie Murphy's 1,000 Words. Now this thing was shot in 2008, sat on a shelf because it's terrible, and it wound up being released, and it was proved to everybody that it's terrible. They make a movie starring one of the most hilarious, foul-mouthed, mile-a-minute talkers ever, and in the movie he can't say anything.
That's just sad.
I just don't get it. That is 1,000 Words. Incredibly unfunny and completely misbegotten from the beginning to the end. This movie is bad. The transfer is, it's a 4-year-old movie at this point. So, the transfer is completely fine. But you know what? It just made the crucial mistake. Because I never saw Eddie Murphy as a physical comedian.
No.
I think
he's not. This tries
right?
to make him Jim Carrey, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. So this is just really bad stuff, and Paramount didn't do a whole lot with this from the extra standpoint. There is some couple things in here, but not much because they know that the movie is a stinker.
Got a real interesting little film here, too. This was not in theaters, but it probably should have been if we had any independent distributors left. This is called Best Laid Plans. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo out from Wellgo, and it's really worth checking out. This is a film set in Nottingham, and it's kind of an English underground, modern-day, thug gangster version of Mice and Men. It takes Steinbeck and transplants it into that kind of South London-y British blue-collar thing that we usually see where they, talk all Cockney and oi, oi, and then they punch and shoot each other. Those movies. Gary Oldman was in a bunch of them. Anyway, no, this is set in Nottingham, and it's really quite well done. The director, David Blair, has a good sense of style. It's nicely put together. It's pretty smart. Again, a loose adaptation of Mice and Men, but you can definitely tell that's the inspiration. And I think it's pretty well done. Stephen Graham stars along with, and I know I'm going to mutilate this guy's name, Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje. How'd I do?
You know what? I don't know it either, so it's probably fantastic.
Anyway, he's great. That guy whose name I just completely slaughtered, he is absolutely terrific. So really, check it out. It's, if John Steinbeck were aware of things like cage fighting, this is what he would have turned up Mice and Men into.
By the way, Wade, we have some sad news to report, as everybody knows.
Yes, we do.
Nora Ephron has died at 71.
Within hours of us recording this podcast, and that is indeed a horrible, horrible tragedy. So Mark and I decided that, again, we didn't love all of her movies, and we certainly disliked a lot of them, but she was a fixture, and she came from royalty, Hollywood royalty. And
not only that, she was married to Carl Bernstein.
Here's the amazing thing. Carl Bernstein, who was portrayed by Dustin Hoffman in All the President's Men, then she was married to him, and they divorced over his infidelity, and she wrote Heartburn about all of that, and then basically Jack Nicholson wound up playing Carl Bernstein in that movie. I mean, imagine if you're Carl Bernstein. Dustin Hoffman plays you based on your greatest triumph, and then Jack Nicholson plays you based on your most humiliating shame. That's not bad.
Or imagine it's Moneyball and Brad Pitt is playing you.
There you go.
See, Brad Pitt, very handsome. Billy Bean, not as handsome.
Yeah.
All right, so here's let's see. Now she only directed 8 films, but she wrote plenty more. Of the 8 films she directed, let's see.
What's your recommendation, Mark?
Well, there's only 8 to choose from. I'm going to say You've Got Mail because it stars Greg Kinnear. Didn't it star Greg Kinnear? No, it starred Tom Hanks. No, wasn't Kinnear in You've Got Mail? Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
You've Got Mail because it features Greg Kinnear in it, and I used to work with him.
So that's your Nora Ephron recommendation.
Yep. As a director.
As a director. Just in general.
Oh, well, Harry Met Sally.
There you go. See, that would be my pick, just overall in general. I mean, as a director, I was much less fond of her films, but I guess I would probably, I don't know. I'm going to go with Sleepless in Seattle.
Bewitched?
Sleepless in Seattle, why not?
Bewitched?
And Mark, we have one more new movie to talk about this week.
We do?
We do. We have one more new movie.
Let's do it.
You know why this movie is special?
Star Wars?
Because I'm on it. Where, of course, the Oscar-winning The Artist is out on Blu-ray and DVD. And there's a featurette on there that I'm featured in, which, of course, was run on television endlessly during their Academy Awards campaign. But I have to say, this is a fantastic Blu-ray. It is beautifully, beautifully transferred. Black and white, crisp, pristine, spectacular, full grain. You still get the full grain. It looks wonderful. The music, fantastic. The audio is great. Everything about this is great. But the real thing that makes this worth buying is the fact that I am on the main featurette.
You love this movie.
That's what makes it worthwhile.
You were pumping this movie when it came out. You were all over this movie. It's
and I'm even more all over it now. Not just because it won a bunch of Oscars, but because I'm on it, for crying out loud. I'm there.
Look, it's
so buy it, show it to your friends, make me famous. Let me ride that Weinstein train to something.
To hell.
Yeah.
I like The Artist a lot. It's a fun little lark. I really didn't take it to be anything more than that. The transfer is good, 1.78 high def transfer. It's black and white. It's funny because the movie is in 1:3:3. They retain that.
Yeah, which I love.
The original aspect ratio of the movies of that time.
And it's funny too because I just watched the old Judy Garland Star is Born the other day, which is one of the films that they pay homage to, and of course Singing in the Rain they pay homage to, and it's amazing because it's great in and of itself. It stands on its own, but yet it pays tribute to so many other movies and so many other genres. It's just it's a wonderful kind of Valentine to Hollywood. It's just fabulous. It brings me to tears just even talking about it.
And thank God Sony didn't shank it because it did win Best Picture.
Yes, it did.
So they can't be shanking
Absolutely.
those.
All right, and we're going to go through some catalog films now, a lot of catalog stuff that's being released. Once again, we have a big blitz from Echo Bridge from the Miramax library. And I'll go through these real quickly. A lot of these have been released before. In fact, almost all of these have been out previously, not necessarily on the format that we have one on Blu-ray that's never been on Blu-ray before. Nirvana with Christopher Lambert. You know what? Honestly, there was a moment when everything was cyberpunk, and I don't know why Gabriele Salvatore, the great Italian director, felt the need to kind of try to wallow in the 80s cyberpunk muck, but he did. And the sad thing is, it wasn't the 80s anymore. It was the late 90s. Salvatore did the Oscar-winning Mediterraneo, and for some reason he wanted to go and go all Chris Lambert and cyberpunk, and it was a big mistake. But it's out on DVD again. Unhook the Stars is also out on DVD again with Jenna Rollins, Marissa Tomei, and Gerard Depardieu. And, it's funny, Nick Cassavetes is nothing at all like his dad. And
I wish he was like his dad.
I do, too. It's nice that he casts his mom in the movie. Jenna Rollins, that's terrific. Marissa Tomei is lovely and terrific, and Depardieu is mildly amusing. This is certainly better than The Notebook, that's for sure, but still kind of a weird misfire, I just don't know what possesses him and what drives him. I wish he'd watch his dad's movies more. On Blu-ray, yes, finally, thank goodness, is Dirty Pretty Things, the incredible film by Stephen Frears that nobody pays any attention to this movie. This is such a good film, and I'm thrilled that Echo Bridge put it out on Blu-ray because it really deserves to be out on Blu-ray. This is an amazing movie that is all about this kind of dark, nasty, underground black market. Well, the Oregon thing, but it's all about what immigrants go through, illegal immigrants in the UK.
That's the heart of it. That's the amazing heart of it.
Yeah, it's a very different thing from what we're accustomed to in the United States. I mean, illegal immigration has been all in the news lately, and when we talk about illegal immigration, we're basically talking about people from Mexico and Central America. In the UK, it's all over the place. It's from Poland, and it's from Africa, and it's from Eastern Europe, and it's from the Caribbean, and it sort of creates this very awkward, unstable, multi-ethnic, multicultural melting pot of illegality, and that's really the heart of this thing. Audrey Tautou is tremendous in this film. Really one of the most fascinating roles that she's ever done. And it's the first thing I ever saw Chiwetel Ejiofor in. And he's, of course, gone on to be a pretty special thing. He is fantastic fantastic. So really an incredible movie, one of Stephen Frears' best, and so sadly overlooked. It was it got an Oscar nomination, but never really caught fire with a lot of people. So you got to check this out. It's a great movie. And then really quickly also out of this Miramax Blitz, we've got Telling You with the long-lost Peter Facinelli. What happened to him? Crying out loud.
Isn't he married to somebody famous or something?
I have no idea, but he's just gone. He's got no career anymore. Jennifer Love Hewitt, very young, is in this. This is, mildly enjoyable, but it's kind of a tweener film. I could do without it. Sweet Revenge with Sam Neill and Helena Bonham Carter and Kristen Scott Thomas. All three of those people have made much better films. This one wants to be kind of charming and funny and cute and sweet and romantic, but not so much. And I'm kind of tired of Helena Bonham Carter doing weird stuff. And The House of Yes is very theatrical. This was a big deal at Sundance once upon a time. Parker Posey's very good in it, but it's just a little too stagey and a little bit too dark, ultimately. Mark Waters, who adapted and directed it based on the Wendy MacLeod novel or a stage play, does a decent job, but it's still just too much of a stage play. And that's it of that Miramax library.
Whoa, we have one Kino release. We have Little Lord Fauntleroy, be a classic story. This is from 1936, and it is really old, but it is not so old that it can't somehow star Mickey Rooney. Isn't that just bizarre?
We were on a Judy Garland kick a few days ago, and it all started with the American Masters documentary. That's what led me to watch Star is Born. I got to tell you, all those old clips of her with Mickey Rooney, you're watching those and you're going, okay, one of those two people has talent, and the other one is a growth-stunted little midget who is way too the hell full of himself. Which is which?
Let me see. Mickey Rooney. Actually, Mickey Rooney wound up being in. He was in the Muppets.
Yeah,
Remember
I know.
He had a cameo in the Muppets.
I do.
And nobody knew who he was except for the five people who were old enough.
The only thing that Mickey Rooney is good for is Dana Carvey's impression. Thank you.
He had a funny bit on The Simpsons years ago. Anyway, this is a completely fine, decent version. There's been several other Little Lord Fauntleroy takes. One from 1921 with where Mary Pickford played Little Lord Fauntleroy. It was kind of funny. This one's from 1936. I kind of like this one because I do like Mickey Rooney. I thought he was kind of a cute kid back then. Now, Kino had their work cut out for them because Fauntleroy is in the public domain, and lots of really bad DVD and Blu-rays have come out, or DVDs have come out of this film, and they're all terrible because they find some crappy print and they don't clean it up. Well, Kino is better than that, and Kino definitely goes out and tries to find the best print they can. So they did find the best print I've seen of the film. I don't know if they really cleaned it up. Doesn't look like it, but I think it's a pretty decent print that they used anyway. So that's good. The audio is not great, and there's no extras. But I like this film a lot. It's a fun film. If you don't know what it's about this poor kid who living in New York. It turns out that his real father is actually this lord who lives in London. This guy's incredibly wealthy. Adorable. Anyway, Little Lord Fauntleroy, a title I've always had problems saying. Little Lord Fauntleroy.
Yeah.
Little Lord Fauntleroy.
I'm not a huge fan of the story, so, whatever.
Because you're a communist.
We got a bunch of Warner Archive Collection releases. These are DVD-Rs. They are manufacture-on-demand MOD releases, and you can get them at warnerarchive.com. That's not archives with an S. It's with a no S. warnerarchive.com. One of them is the very, very nicely photographed, but not terribly interesting, The Awakening. This is one of those silly kind of wannabe horror classics that never really catches fire. It sort of wants to be a new version of the Mummy, directed by Mike Newell, who really should have known better, but it's kind of a cult thing. It's got a bunch of people who should be in better films. Charlton Heston, Susanna York, Stephanie Zimbalist. It's one of those movies. Anatole Litvak produced and directed The Journey with Deborah Kerr and Yul Brynner for MGM back in the day, and that now, of course, has fallen into the Warner Library ever since they acquired the MGM Library, courtesy of Ted Turner. And you know what? This is kind of a Cold War drama set in 1956. about refugees who are trying to get out of war-torn Budapest or Cold War-era Budapest. It's okay. It kind of has that shrill feeling of Cold War melodramas, which are not always. They don't always work to the positive end of making these dramas work. But there's a little bit of historical import here, and it's worth checking out just because Yul Brynner is so good and because Deborah Kerr is so good. And they, of course, worked previously together in what famous film, Mark?
Star Wars.
The King and I. Not as good as The King and I by any means, but it's nice to see them together again. Fred Astaire and Joan Leslie in The Sky's the Limit with Robert Benchley. Can you believe it? He wrote Jaws, and then he's in.
That's not true.
Never mind. No, this is certainly not one of the great Fred Astaire films of all time, not by any stretch, but it's certainly perfectly serviceable. It's a kind of a programmer from the era. And, this was done right smack in the middle of World War II when they needed to just kind of keep people excited about the war effort and give them a little something to escape and make them happy and, keep everybody, keep them happy down on the farm. And that's exactly what this is all about. Edward Griffith, a totally mediocre RKO director of the era, he directed this one, and Fred Astaire is fine. Joan Leslie is one of his minor partners, and this is really strictly for Fred Astaire obsessives. Another MGM musical from the era that's a lot better is Living in a Big Way with Gene Kelly. I have always preferred Gene Kelly to Fred Astaire, and this is a good reason why. Gene Kelly just totally lights it up here. Now, this is a post-World War II film. This is 1947, but it still has the feel of, those 40s musicals as they're kind of finding their way between the Busby Berkeley stuff from the 30s and into more big Technicolor stuff that explodes in the 1950s and 60s. And you can tell that Gene Kelly just plays to a bigger screen than Fred Astaire does. He really knows how to kind of grow to the size of the screen with his dancing. And I know a lot of people disagree with me. I don't care. Also, the director, Gregory LaCava, much, much better director. So this was one of the better MGM musicals of the day. And then lastly, a couple of Red Skelton films. If you don't love Red Skelton, I don't love you. Red Skelton, before he had his modestly funny television show, made some very, very funny movies, and these were all for MGM. The first one is Half a Hero. He is absolutely hysterical. Also, credit goes to Gene Hagen, who is outrageously funny, almost steals the show from Red Skelton. And then The Great Diamond Robbery, which is just freaking pure delight, with a very young James Whitmore in it as well. This is just so wonderful. Robert Z. Leonard, one of the better studio hacks of the day, just totally nails it. And this is almost like something that Danny Kaye would have done. He plays a diamond cutter and gets in kind of on the wrong side with a bunch of criminals. But, Danny Kaye did this kind of stuff beautifully. But you know what? Red Skelton does it really, really well as well. And I think it's a terrific film. A lot of fun. A lot of fun, Mark.
Was it, though?
Yeah, it was.
Wade, William Castle, classic director of horror films and cheesy, crazy stunts to sell them. He sort of did a comedy once, Wade.
Did he really?
He really did. It was with Sid Caesar and Vera Miles.
Awesome.
Called The Spirit is Willing. And let me just say that William Castle and Sid Caesar and comedy, three do not mix. Not a good film.
Really?
No. It's kind of a dud. It's about Sid Caesar, there's three ghosts, and a whole lot of laughs, except it's not funny. The transfer here is not that great. You can definitely see the movie. I guess that's a plus. Anyway, it's pretty soft and not a whole lot of detail. It's an older film. It's actually from 1967, and all the Castle stuff was low budget anyway. The audio here is completely, absolutely fine. It is a lossless master mono track, so there's not a whole lot going on. When it comes to special features, there's like nothing. Paramount catalog release, it gets nothing. Anyway, William Castle, I would recommend a lot of William Castle's horror films because they're a lot of fun, like The Tingler and whatnot.
Oh, The Tingler's the best.
But The Spirit is Willing, I would pass. Speaking of pass, we have Meatballs, starring Bill Murray.
I like Meatballs.
This is from 1979. This is during Bill Murray's salad years. He was doing a lot of really funny comedies like Stripes and Caddyshack. But Meatballs, I feel like that's not one of the top Murray comedies.
I would agree, but I think it's still fun.
Do you really?
It's Murray and Ivan Reitman doing their thing.
Murray plays a counselor at a camp, and wackiness ensues.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, if you previously have
And by the way,
purchased-
I have to say, sorry.
Yes.
The one good thing about Meatballs
What?
on Blu-ray,
Yeah.
audio commentary by Ivan Reitman.
Yeah, Ivan Reitman gives good talk. He does. He gives good commentary.
Ooh.
You betcha. You know, if you have any previous version of Deliverance, including the previous Blu-ray, throw it out. Just toss it, get rid of it, use it as a clay pigeon, whatever. The new Warner Brothers Blu-ray book, 40th anniversary, with a 44-page booklet included. This whole Blu-ray book thing is just perfect for Deliverance. I love this movie. This is one of the great films of the 1970s. It is one of the great films ever made by John Boorman. I love John Boorman. Even though Boorman is one of those directors who has made crap and masterpieces in equal measure, God only knows how the man who made Hope and Glory also made Exorcist 2. It boggles the mind how
Awesome.
you can make Zardoz and Excalibur. I still am just mystified. It's just it's beyond belief how he can not realize how bad and how good some of his movies are in equal measure. But Deliverance is one of his masterpieces, and it is just great. Look, we all know, we all use the name of the movie. This is how great this movie is. We all refer to Deliverance on a regular basis to describe bad vacations, inbred hillbillies, anally raping hillbillies.
Oh, I talk
When
about
it
anally raping hillbillies
happens
all the time.
You take a wrong turn, you wind up somewhere. Next thing you know, some guy with cross eyes and a few teeth is taking advantage of you, and you need a friend of yours to just load up the bow and arrow and put one right through his noodle or through his neck. That happens all the time to me, all the time, and I always go, that was such a Deliverance moment. This is really a terrific film. It is just fantastic. Great commentary with John Boorman, who is such a good commentator. And it's very British. He's very erudite and dry, but it's a great commentary. A fantastic retrospective featurette with the cast, and a 4-part retrospective documentary that is superb. Everything about this is great, especially the booklet. I cannot recommend it highly enough. After 40 years, this film totally holds up.
Yep, I agree. Now, it's been on Blu-ray before.
Yes, but this is a new transfer, and it is way better. Way, way, way better. That previous transfer, it just blew. It was
So you're saying
good.
it's way better?
Way better. And what else you got there, Mark?
Oh, The Colossus of New York.
Of course.
The Colossus of New York is a Paramount catalog title being released through Olive Films. They did very little with this. It's not a very good movie. It's about this scientist who dies, and his father transplants the guy's brain into the body of a big robot. So it's about as good as you'd imagine. The story of a guy whose brain gets transplanted into the body of a robot.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's about as good as you'd imagine.
There you go.
So The Colossus of New York, you know what? I would rent this film if I was having a Halloween party and I put this on a loop, because people just walk by the TV and laugh.
Of course.
Otherwise, I would forget The Colossus of New York.
Ah, yes. And then lastly, on our old film list, or I should say our classic film list, we have 4 films from Olive, who is still putting out those great catalog titles from Paramount that Paramount themselves just won't put any money into, and for that we should be grateful. Thank you, Olive, for finding these films and giving them to us again. The Hangman, directed by Michael Curtiz, is kind of a lost Michael Curtiz Western featuring Fess Parker, who of course was famous for playing both Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett on television, along with Jack Lord, for crying out loud. That's it, yeah. Hawaii Five-0, Jack Lord. Tina Louise. Gilligan's Island Tina Louise. And Robert Taylor, the only person who really had a career in movies after this. Everybody else just became TV stars. But you know what? This is a great little Western. A little black and white Western. And you got to check it out. From 1959. Really a lot of fun. And then also Clint Walker in The Night of the Grizzly. This is not such a great film. But, what's interesting about this is the director. You know who directed this, Mark?
Oh, yeah, Steven Spielberg.
In 1966, this was directed by a gentleman by the name of Joe Pevney.
Joe Pevney, who went on to direct a bunch of Star Trek.
Ton of Star Treks. Some of the best Star Treks ever. So even though his Western directing career didn't really take flight with The Night of the Grizzly and Clint Walker, it's nice to sort of, you look at it and there are scenes in there where you kind of go, Wow, if Clint Walker were Captain Kirk and this were taking place 200 or 300 years in the future, and it weren't a grizzly, but it were like a Gorn or something, that'd be a Star Trek episode.
I bet there'll be a Gorn in the new Star Trek movie.
Oh, I hope not.
So do I.
From 1958 is a movie that is worth watching just because it is just so unbelievably hysterically cheesy. This is one of the great B movies of the era. This is from director Jack Arnold, The Space Children. Mark, how do you not love that movie? Seriously.
That looks like one of the cheesiest 1950s, the horrible, cheap, cheesy, bad dialogue.
It totally is.
A bunch of guys in army uniforms barking orders.
It totally is. You know what this really is? This is basically a low-budget Village of the Damned 2 years before Village of the Damned was even made. So if you love Village of the Damned, you're really going to get a kick out of this. It's Children of the Corn kind of falls in with this genre as well. And speaking of veterans from Gilligan's Island, we talked about Tina Louise a second ago. You know who's in this?
Tina Louise.
Russell Johnson.
He was the professor.
I just love watching all these TV actors in these old movies before they were, famous on television. And then lastly, Mark, you talked about William Castle. We got a real William Castle movie here.
What's it called?
It's called Project X.
Another Project? How many movies are called Project X?
And this is what I find hysterical is, this is going to... I don't know if this is really the right time to be releasing this because we just had the stupid, horrible party film Project X, which is just the worst thing I've ever seen. And then we got the old Matthew Broderick monkey movie Project X. And people are going to get this confused with both of them. They're going to look at these pictures and they're going to go, wait a minute, that doesn't look like there's no monkey, there's no Matthew Broderick, and there's no kids dropping ecstasy around a pool. What is that? This is William Castle's futuristic dystopian kind of quasi-Star Trek-y movie from the exact year when Star Trek was on television. That's why it looks almost exactly the same. This is 1968. And it totally feels like a friggin' bad Star Trek episode, I got to be honest with you. Christopher George, who was on the Rat Patrol on television, is this guy who is cryogenically unfrozen after many, many years in the year 2118, which oddly enough doesn't feel that far away, does it?
We will not be around for that, Wade.
2118 doesn't feel that far away. I mean, seriously, we could have grandchildren that would be alive in that year.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
at least not for me.
Anyway, but this whole thing is kind of centered around a kind of germ warfare concept, which I guess was a big deal in the 1960s. But anyway, it feels really dated, and the only thing that kind of makes it enjoyable is the fact that it's kitschy and has kind of a Star Trek / Barbarella feel to it, and Harry Gould is in it. And I love Harry Gould.
You know who else we love, Wade?
Who do we love?
Bernie Kopell.
Damn right we do. So before we get into our Bernie Kopell interview, we're going to talk about Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. Mark, tell the people about Lancelot Link.
Lancelot Link was the story of a monkey. Not just any monkey.
A secret chimp.
He was a secret chimp. Now,
this is a terrific series, and it only lasted 2 years.
It only lasted 2 years, but they got a lot of mileage out of it because we're still talking about Lancelot Link's Secret Chimp. The good folks at Film Chest, they actually wound up producing a great DVD package. I wish it was on Blu-ray. A great DVD package, 2 discs, has...
3 discs.
No,
it's 3 discs.
Well, it is. 2 discs have 17 episodes.
Yeah. Then
the third disc it has a bunch of bonus features,
yeah,
including interviews with the creators and footage of the actual Lancelot Link at a wildlife way station from last year.
Yep.
The actual Lancelot Link is alive. The
I know.
chimp.
Yeah.
He's still around.
And Bernie talks about that.
He does talk about it. And the show, just if you don't know, is completely ridiculous. It's a live-action show, and it takes place in a world inhabited by chimps, not the Planet of the Apes, but inhabited by chimps. And there is a agency called the Agency to Prevent Evil.
Yes.
Acronym APE.
Oh,
yeah.
That's clever.
That's right. And
what's the other one?
Huh?
What's the other one?
Well, there's the criminal headquarters for the Underworld Master Plan. Chump.
Oh.
Ape versus chump. You know it.
That sounds a little bit like Control versus Chaos.
Yes, I love it. Anyway, Lancelot Link is the top agent at the Agency to Prevent Evil, and on the show they had the apes actually,
Fantastic.
move their lips, and then they'd move the lips sometimes by putting peanut butter on their mouth to make them move their lips.
Well, no, we're going to get into all that with the
That's
interview
true.
with Bernie.
And then actors would dub the dialogue.
Yes.
And one of the most famous, best, most memorable, and hilarious voice actors on that show was Bernie Kopell. The man from Love Boat, the man from Get Smart.
Classic television actor.
That's right.
A legend.
That's right.
A living legend.
And by the way, you're going to find out something about Bernie Kopell that blew me away.
Totally. Ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Kopell.
Bernie, we'll cut right to the chase. And first off, I want to tell you, a childhood ritual of mine was always to celebrate my birthdays on weekends by going to Hamburger Hamlet in West Hollywood. And every time we went, you were always there. So it was.
Oh my goodness! I used to live around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a double treat. I just want to let you know that you were an icon of my childhood and you were an icon of my adulthood, and I think I speak for Mark as well.
Good heavens! This is the day after my birthday, and I'm getting all this adulation. I can hardly stand it.
Well, good.
Hey, hold the phone. Your birthday. First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. 79 years old yesterday. Woohoo!
Bravo.
What does a 79-year-old who has everything get on his birthday?
Well, it's something I can't discuss on the radiator. No, I'm kidding. You get everything that you hope for. I'm so lucky in that I've got two little boys. Katrina, my darling wife, has given me two amazing kids. Adam is 14. He's going to be 15 on Halloween. That should say something for his personality. And, John,
you are 79. You have a 14-year-old.
Yeah. I started late. I was a little slow.
Well, let me. One of the great birthday gifts I have to imagine is the fact that Lancelot and Link: Secret Chimp is out again on DVD, and people are suddenly paying attention to the early part of your career all over again. Get Smart came out last year, the complete series. Could you confirm whether or not, as everybody always suspected, whether or not Baron von Butcher was based on Siegfried?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Baron von Butcher was based on Siegfried. I'll tell you how the whole thing came about. I did 30 shows with Steve Allen in '64. We called that the Secret Steve Allen Show because maybe 3 or 4 people saw it. It was sponsored by Westinghouse. And Mike Marmer and Stan Burns were the writers, and I showed them some shtick I had, and they used that, and they created the characters around that. For example, I did something on the great tragedian Maurice Schwartz, so they made him the richest man in the world. And Steve would ask me, well, what do you do with all that money that you have? I said, I'd like to help people less fortunate than myself. He said, which people are those? I said, the Astors, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, because these people had less money than this guy. And they created Japan's foremost comedian. In those days, you could do ethnics, and today you cannot. And I deferred to the people standing up and saying, hey, I'm a Latino. You cannot do Latinos. Latinos have to do Latinos. But I got away with murder in those early days because my first 5 years was nothing but Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, and now you can't do that anymore. But in our strange business, Wade, you do what's available to you. And if some things are no longer available, you say, hey, okay, so I'll do something else. And that's what, the same guys who created my Siegfried character created this. And I tell you how it came about. We're sitting around and we're a little depressed because Get Smart was over with and we had so much fun for 5 years doing that show. So I'm sitting around with Mike Marmon and Stan Burns. I said, well, what the heck are we going to do now? So Mike said, let's do it with monkeys. And that sounded like a really wacko idea, but that turned into Lancelot Link. So they got these choreographers or handlers or whatever we want to call them, and they got these chimpanzees to wear costumes. My chimpanzee wore a Homburg. He wore a monocle. in his eye. Can you imagine this? And he went through certain motions that were done by the choreographers. I have no idea how they did this. And then they got them to move their mouths as though they were speaking. Now, everybody knows that chimpanzees don't speak English. Everybody knows. It's common knowledge. But they got the chimps to move their mouths up and down, up and down, up and down. Some like peanut butter, some like a little chewing gum, some like a banana. They get the mouths going up and down. And I remember a very long speech that, because it was very challenging for Mike Marmon and Stan Burns to write words that would fit the mouths going up and down. So there was a very long speech where I was instructing my henchmen. And at the end of it, there was a yawn. I said, well, what the heck am I going to do with this? So it came out, I'm paraphrasing, it came out something like this. You must understand, you will go into the enemy camp, you will surround them, you will imprison them, and you will destroy their headquarters. You understand, it is most important that you do this, or else you will be excommunicated from this organization. With a big yawn at the end, like he was bored with his own instructions.
So that has to, on a certain level, be more gratifying to you than just being handed material, which obviously is what usually happens to actors, is that something's developed and they walk in, they're hired, and here, say this, and your input tends to be, minimal at that point, unless you're an A-level star who's sort of been with the show long enough to be able to raise your hand and say, hey, wait a minute, but you were there from the very beginning, so there's greater creative gratification.
What the big deal in my view, is that Lancelot Link, the chimp that played Lancelot, is still alive, and he is residing in his retirement at the Wildlife Way Station run by Martine Collette. And 10% of the money that comes in, by the way, the DVD is selling for $24.98, all 17 episodes. It's from a company called Film Chest, Lancelot Link. 10% of the money is coming to Wildlife Way Station so that Lancey can live out his life in luxury. He has his own harem there, and he's getting the best of filet and the best kind of organic bananas, and he's having a wonderful retirement.
That's
I
great.
have no idea what the longevity of chimps were, but they live a very long life as long as they don't drive.
That is great.
Can we get back to being 79 and having a 14-year-old?
Oh, yes, please.
Because I think that's amazing. So you're 60.
Well, it's not that amazing. 79 is the new 59, or it just keeps going that, and 20-year-old is the new fetus. I don't know what.
But you're 60. Wait. You're 65 years old, and you're like, let's have a kid.
When I had my first kid, and I was like, what the heck? I said, how did that happen? I said, when I was doing Get Smart, Mel Brooks, who is one of the great insane geniuses of the world. I didn't have any kids then. He said, so he's asking people, you got any kids? I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't have any kids. He said, read the manual. There was another thing about Mel. He and his wife had just come back from Italy, and everybody wants to hear the pearls of wisdom the pearls of comedy coming out of Mel's mouth. We said, Mel, what was the greatest architectural achievement you saw in Italy? And without missing a beat, he said, Carlo Ponti's elevator shoes that permit him to kiss or feel a Wren on the lips. He's a genius, and he's enjoying the biggest success of his life now with the producers and young Frankenstein. There's no quit in this guy.
Bernie, your kids and you, as you introduce them to your early stuff, you are one of the few great character actors of the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, frankly, who enjoyed many different great performances. Most actors are happy to have one archetypal role, and from Siegfried to Doc, I mean, you were different things to different generations, and I was happy, and I think Mark was too, to have grown up with all of them. Have your kids seen all of those? What do they think of them, and what is your favorite?
Well, the first time we saw, the the family was sitting around and looking at an episode of Get Smart, and of course I didn't look at all like what I look like. And Katrina was saying to Joshie, you see, that's Daddy with the scar and the gray hair and that nasty attitude. He said, no, Daddy's sitting right next to me.
Aww.
It's a little unusual, but then again, the kids wanted to be Siegfried and Starker and have the fun of that. And little Joshie, the 9-year-old, has already done 4 commercials. So
great.
Maybe they'll get into it. I mean, God help them if they get into it, because like Lainey Kazan said, to be in our business, you have to fall in love with the word no. Because there's
sure.
rejection going on. But then again, you go through a number of rejections, and then, the title of my book will be Hang in There for the Goodies. Hang in there for the goodies, because if you keep coming at them, eventually something good is going to happen.
But you've done Monk, you did My Name is Earl, so it's not like you're just looking back on the 70s and 80s and thinking that was a great time. You still work. You've done, modern shows.
I love to work, and it's fun, and it's just great. I've been touring in a play called, you're sitting down, I want to tell you the name of the play.
Yeah.
Viagra Falls.
Oh, that's great.
Viagra Falls, and there's some rumors that we may be doing a tour on the east coast of Florida. It's two old farts, a hooker and a blue pill. That's the plot. And there's some complications in there as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, any chance it'll come to L.A.?
You never know. You never know with these things. But in the meantime, I'm going to be going to Australia in August. Tell a few jokes, sign some autographs, and then Chicago in September, and then Philadelphia in October. And I'll be back for Adam's birthday on Halloween.
Brilliant.
So getting my buns out there, guys, getting out there, keeping it happening, because when you retire, people say, are you retired? And I say, no, I want to remain alive. I don't want to retire.
Bernie, before we let you go, what's your favorite role ever?
It's Siegfried. Siegfried was my favorite role. Love Boat changed my lifestyle, but the joy of doing Mel Brooks and Buck Henry's lines, nothing can replace that for me. And it has in Australia, where I'm going, they play it around the clock. There were some lunatics when we had a sort of a get-together while Don was still alive. They flew in from Sydney, Australia, just to be with us. So some people are really very vigorous about their love for Get Smart, and that's very sweet. And the DVD set is just sensational. How they worked it out, with the opening and the prison bars and all of that, and it has commentary by the original cast and the producers and the writers. So they've done a really good job on it. I'm glad that I met you guys at the Hamburger Hamlet. That's so sweet.
Well, Bernie, this has been so great talking. Best of luck. Mark, you got anything else?
No, I'm telling you, Siegfried is not just your favorite character; it's a lot of people's favorite characters on a classic show that still holds up.
And it was just great fun, and it's still funny.
It's brilliant. Well, Bernie, thank you so much, and best of luck. We hope Lancelot Link sells huge, and we'll certainly do our part to get the word out there.
Good, I appreciate it. All the best, guys.
Best to you, too.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Bernie.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mark, Bernie Kopell he's immortal.
Bernie,
it's unbelievable. Bernie.
He has a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old. How the hell does that happen?
It's incredible. Now, Bernie Kopell, man, he's still working. He is still, you can tell he's just as sharp as can be. The guy is a delight to talk to. He's a class act, a true professional, and we want to thank him and his representatives for making it possible for us to talk to him on this week of the release of Lancelot Link. And before we get out of here, I just want to make a quick mention of 4 titles from Impulse Pictures for those who are really into the Nikatsu erotic films collection. There are 4 more films in this horrible, twisted, psychotic Japanese cult series from the 1970s that will be sure to disturb you and your children if you dare watch them. One of them is True Story of a Woman in Jail Continues. Zoom In, Sex Apartments, Zoom Up, The Beaver Book Girl, and Eros School. Feels so good. These are all from the Nikatsu Erotic Films collection. If you even know what I'm talking about, you're probably going to want to run out and get them. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't want to know. You'll just be deeply, deeply disturbed. These Japanese films from this era are just very sick and twisted and disturbed. But I feel obligated to let the prurient among you know that they are out there for your consumption, just so that you stay home and don't expose yourselves to us on the streets. That being said, we are done with this week's show. We'll be back next week with lots of great television, a Voxbox, and what else are we going to have next week, Mark? What am I eating? You're going to make me eat a muffin?
I might.